22 people killed and 59 injured in a suicide bomb attack at Manchester Arena, the worst incident, say police, the city has ever faced. Good afternoon. We're live in Manchester this afternoon with an extended news programme here and on YouTube amid the worst terror attack on British soil for more than a decade. 22 people, including children, are dead and dozens have been hurt after a bomber blew himself up at the end of a concert by the American singer Ariana Grande. In the last few moments, police say a 23-year-old man has been arrested. Eyewitnesses speak about the fear and confusion that gripped the crowd as the explosion went off, the panicked rush to escape, the desperate search for relatives, many of them still missing. There have been many acts of kindness from the emergency crews and medics who rushed to help, to families who offered up their rooms. The election campaign is on hold as Theresa May heads to Manchester. There will be difficult days ahead, she says, but our way of life will always prevail. It is almost beyond comprehension, a suicide attack aimed at causing maximum carnage to young fans, to children at a pop concert here last night. Many young people are among the 22 who died and the 59 others who were hurt, some now battling life-threatening injuries. Police were called to the Manchester Arena last night at 10:33. The attack sent fleeing as the city's Arndale Centre was evacuated amid a security alert. Matt Fry reports on how events have unfolded. You might find some of the images distressing. Ariana Grande on stage in front of 21,000 people, mostly teenagers and children. At 10:30, concert over, a dashcam records a distant thud. The same thud inside the arena.
Oh my God. What's going on? What just happened?
First confusion, then panic.
Oh my God! What's going on?
As thousands head for the doors, the announcer tries his best to contain the panic.
Just take your time and keep exiting the building. There's no need to bunch up and run. Take your time. There's no problems here.
But there was a problem. The suicide bomber had exploded himself and his device in the foyer area outside the concert hall, packed with members of the audience on their way home.
I've looked back where the explosion was and there were people laid out on the floor. Turned around to look at my wife to see if she were all right, and she said, no, I need to lay down. So I laid her down on the floor and I've laid there with her, and I looked at my foot and saw that, yeah, my foot's got a gash in the foot. But I'm more concerned about my wife because she's got a stomach wound, a leg wound. They think she's broken her femur.
There was a massive loud bang and I just looked up to where I heard it coming from, and people were screaming and literally jumping out of the seats.
Me and my daughter was on the stairs and somebody's like climbing on top of her and climbing on top of us, and I had to pull her out by her arm.
Relief as this mother finds her daughter.
Thousands of kids, thousands, just kids, little girls. Do you know what I mean? I'm terrified.
The walking wounded and traumatized found shelter in empty buses, in people's houses, in nearby hotels. The community immediately, almost instinctively, rallied to help. Although every terrorist attack is uniquely barbaric, there is now a collective drill to these events.
We should, come out and show, whoever's done this that it doesn't matter, because Manchester, we're glue and we stick together when it counts.
The terrorism the authorities had come to expect was the lone attacker using a knife or a car as a weapon. This required bomb-making expertise and perhaps collusion with others. The election campaign was suspended last night, and in the last hour from the steps of number 10,
a somber Prime Minister summed up the nation's gut feeling.
We struggle to comprehend the warped and twisted mind that sees a room packed with young children not as a scene to cherish, but as an opportunity for carnage. Let us remember those who died, and let us celebrate those who helped, safe in the knowledge that the terrorists will never win, and our values, our country and our way of life will always prevail.
There have already been plenty of tests for her since she moved to this address 10 months ago. Who knows how this one will pan out? In another part of the world, in Bethlehem, President Trump also weighed in.
So many young, beautiful, innocent people living and enjoying their lives murdered by evil losers in life. I won't call them monsters because they would like that term. They would think that's a great name.
Above Manchester, around the arena, the only hint of last night's carnage, some uncollected rubbish and an eerie emptiness. The politicians automatically call for business as usual, but there is nothing usual about this business.
Well, joining me now is Helen McCourt and her daughter Isabella, who were both in the arena last night. Whereabouts were you and what happened?
We were sitting on the right-hand side of the arena, up on a sort of high tier area where we could see the whole stage. It was a fantastic show. It suddenly came to an end. Ariana had just walked off. The lights came on, and then suddenly there was a very loud banging noise which came from the arena. It wasn't directly coming from the arena itself, but we knew it wasn't too far away.
And did you have any idea what it was?
Absolutely not. I thought at first it may have been something to do with maybe equipment or something blowing up within the electrical side of the stage or something. However, after that, it suddenly came to my mind, could this be a terrorist attack?
And then you started to see panic setting in.
People started to leave the arena, and even then I looked behind and people were starting to panic. You could see people actually climbing over chairs to actually get to the doors at the back to get out of the arena. So people already knew there was something not quite right.
Isabella, did you have any idea what was going on?
Not at all, no. It was all just a big blur at the time.
It must have been very frightening.
It was, yeah. Extremely.
So how did you get out?
Well, when we got out into the actual main corridor, that was when really panic struck. There were absolutely hundreds and hundreds of young people running in despair, running to get out, crying, screaming. Some women were lifting children over their shoulders. Others were wheeling wheelchairs to get out as desperately as they possibly can. There was a door, and there was a side entrance, which was about maybe 600 metres away from where we came out, which we managed to get out. But that sort of 5 or 10 minutes seemed like an hour. It was such a terrible experience of panic, despair, upset, and not really knowing what was going on.
Now, you live a little bit outside Manchester.
We do.
I mean, why are you still here? Were you unable to get away?
Yes, my car was actually parked in the MEN Arena car park at the time, so we can't actually get access to our cars until tomorrow. So obviously when I could see what was going on with all the ambulances arriving and everything, what was going on with all the police, and I knew we weren't going to get home
You spent
tonight.
the night here?
We did. We stayed in a hotel.
How are you feeling, Isabel?
Well, I'm feeling a little bit better now, but it's still really heartbreaking to know that people have been dealing with people going missing, and it's all very distressing. And
well, look, stay with us for a moment, if you will, because there is a helpline number which is on the screen. Viewers on Channel 4 are going to leave us now, but we're going to carry on YouTube with our coverage for the next half hour. And if you're still with us, I'm with Helen McCourt and Isabella. I'm sorry that I had to just interrupt you there, just to let viewers switch. But this is going to take a long time to process, isn't it?
definitely.
Absolutely. I think, to be honest, I think from a child's point of view, my daughter being her first experience of a concert, I think they really need to up security to make younger people feel more confident in going to these type of events.
Did anyone check your bags?
They did. It was. I wouldn't say it was a thorough check. I think they need to put something in place, something like what they have in the airports. And I think that will make the young people feel a lot more confident and comfortable attending events like this.
So there weren't metal detectors or anything like that?
No,
you were just walking in and people were having a look at what you were carrying?
It was a general look at your ticket and let's have a look in your bag. And it was just literally a glance.
Well, look, thank you so much for telling us what happened. And, you know, I hope you get home and get some rest and feel better.
Thank you.
Because it's been a big shock. Well done, Isabella. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, well, let's go to find out now what's happening to those victims who are being treated in the 6 hospitals across the Greater Manchester area. Medical staff rushed to offer their services as soon as the news became clear. Our Health and Social Affairs correspondent, Victoria MacDonald, is at the Manchester Royal Infirmary. Victoria, what's the latest there?
Well, yes, Krishnan, actually there are now 8 hospitals have been confirmed who took 59 casualties. Behind me at the Royal Infirmary there were 9. Around the corner at the Children's Hospital, 12 casualties, which gives you again a feeling for just how young many of these victims were. And as we've heard from Downing Street earlier, many of them have life-threatening conditions. Stepping Hill Hospital has confirmed that they 3 had surgery throughout the night. Now, a major incident alert was called last night. The NHS is well rehearsed in these incidents, but today we've just had a statement from the North West Ambulance Service. They sent 60 ambulances to the scene. They said no matter how much you train the staff for such incidents like this, nothing can prepare you for the shock and sadness. Now, the major incident here was lifted at about 6:30 this morning. I spoke to somebody who'd been working right through the night. They've gone off shift now. They will be back this afternoon. And that really is a running theme right through this. The sheer kindness and willingness of people wanting to help. All those who rushed to help, the ambulance service, the paramedics, the surgeons, all the people who came into the hospitals. One volunteer here told me they'd been inundated, and at about 6 o'clock this morning somebody turned up with pizza, another one with trays of cakes. The blood transfusion service has just said that they don't want any more people to come and donate blood, that they have enough. But I think as the day goes on there will be more of an update on just how serious some of these casualties are, and perhaps the toll changing. They're not sure at the moment, but currently it is 59 casualties being treated right across the region.
Victoria MacDonald at Manchester Royal Infirmary. Well, all campaigning in the general election has been suspended. Theresa May is heading here to Manchester after giving a statement outside number 10, and our political editor Gary Gibbon is in Downing Street. Gary?
Well, what Theresa May had to say in that statement, you've heard a bit of it. She also told us that the terrorist assessment, the threat level assessment, has not been raised. It's still remaining at the 4th highest level of severe. It hasn't been raised to critical. That means there is not intelligence of other specific threats. But the Cobra meeting this morning that she chaired will have been looking at other threats that are around, what needs to be done. And she's going to have another meeting when she gets back from Manchester. She set off there about an hour ago. She spoke of the appalling, sickening cowardice of the attack when she was speaking here, and it's because of just the scale and horror of this thing that the election has been suspended. But as you played a clip earlier, she also said our way of life will always prevail. So the election campaign will come back at some point, but I don't think anybody's really capable of turning their minds to exactly when that will feel like the right moment. It will probably come back with a different tone, because things were getting pretty fractious, and I suspect the tone will be slightly different when things resume. But we don't know when. Today, this week was meant to be a moment when that sort of campaigning activity was intensifying, and that is obviously not happening now.
Gary Gibbon, thank you for now. Well, joining me here in Manchester is the Labour parliamentary candidate for Manchester Central, Lucy Powell. She was the MP for this constituency, and Manchester Arena is in the constituency. And I mean, you must be feeling dreadful.
It's appalling. It's just unspeakable, despicable, evil act that has happened here and seems to have been targeted at teenagers and young children, as you've seen on your programme earlier. And, you know, I'm due here myself with my daughter in a few weeks' time to see a concert, and that's the kind of people that would have been here, you know, families that bought these tickets months ago, maybe for Christmas, and this was a big night out they've been looking forward to for many, many months, and to end in such horror and loss of life, and my heart just goes out to those families. It really does.
That is the most shocking thing about this, isn't it? That who was inside, and this, you know, most soft of soft targets. Every time there is an attack, you wonder how more depraved the targeting can be.
You do, and I think that's because on all the previous occasions, and as I know will happen on this occasion, the terror doesn't work, because yes, they do murder people, obviously, and that's horrific for those families, but what their intention is with these acts is to divide us, is to sow hatred, is to break the community spirit of cities like Manchester and other places across the UK. And on every occasion of terror, you know, we show the love, we show the strength, we show the solidarity, and that defeats the terror. And so it's almost like they keep having to get more and more extreme to try and break us, and I think that's why we need to redouble our resolve, you know, when it is so awful today, because, you know, like everybody else, I feel angry, and, you know, you want to kind of put that anger into something, but we have to try and put it into something positive.
The responses have to be multiple and on different levels, don't they? Because as you say, there'll be the community response, which I'm sure will be very strong and always has been through history whenever Manchester has come under attack. But there will also have to be a very serious response in terms of the way we are governed, our security, the way we think about security for events like this as well, isn't there?
Absolutely, and we always have to look at lessons learned and whether more can be done. You know, we also have to keep in mind that our security services do an immense job in keeping us safe all of the rest of the time, and that these terrorists only have to slip through the net, you know, once to cause this kind of action, whereas we have to be right all the time in order to prevent it. So we have to learn those lessons, but what we can't do is to let these sort of acts change the way we live our lives. I will be coming to the concert here in a few weeks' time with my daughter. I will be carrying on my life, and other people have to do that. We have to show that life carries on, albeit that we grieve and we join hands and we share that sorrow.
Tell us about your city, because I mean, a lot of people won't know the extent of community relations here, the extent to which it's integrated. There have been long-standing immigrant communities here, you know, right very close to here, haven't there?
Absolutely. My constituency is made up of all sorts of communities. You know, my family came here decades ago from Ireland, and since then we've seen, you know, people coming from all over the world, Afro-Caribbeans, Somalis, those from Asia, Pakistan, right across the Commonwealth and the rest of the world. And we've always been a city that has celebrated that diversity, that has come together. And I think we saw that last night, didn't we? People from all sorts of different faiths, different ethnic backgrounds, different backgrounds coming together here to offer support, lifts, you know, sanctuary, shelter, food and drink. Everyone came together, and that is the sort of city that we have here, and that spirit will not be broken by this event.
Lucy Powell, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Well, if you are just joining us on YouTube, I'm actually just going to invite our correspondent Kieran Jenkins to come in and join me at this live position as well. The headlines remain that 22 young people have been killed in this attack last night, and 59 are injured. The police have said children are amongst the dead, but we're still waiting for names and identities. And they haven't said more about the attacker other than the fact that they believe it was a suicide attack and that he was killed during it. Well, Kieran Jenkins was here through the night. I mean, what did you find when you got here?
Well, as we arrived here last night, people were still emerging from the area around the arena. They were dazed, they were shaken, and they were scarcely able to comprehend what they just experienced. And I say people, what was really striking about it was that these were young people. Some of them were children and some of them were alone. They were still looking for their parents. And they would tell you tales of absolute horror. And what really brought it home for me was how they described, just before this incredible explosion, a sea of pink balloons were released into the auditorium and they were clutching them. as this explosion went off. And then, of course, they all made for any exit they could in a scene of absolute pandemonium. And outside, as people are telling us this, we're seeing parents sprinting in the opposite direction towards the police cordon, their faces stricken with fear, pleading with information about their children who are missing. And of course, some children are still missing this afternoon. Then we went to the Royal Infirmary, the hospital, one of the nearest hospitals to us here, and we found a lot of families going around asking were their loved ones there. And unfortunately, some people were told that they'd passed away. And I'll never forget the image of an 8 or 9-year-old girl who was in the back of a car being driven away by her family, and her face was just swollen with tears. And in that hospital there's a special children's paediatric unit. And one of the most striking things for me was seeing the steady stream of ambulances pulling up to this paediatric A&E throughout the night, delivering children there who are still being treated this afternoon. And so as people woke up this morning, they had horrendous tales. Some of them had tales of incredible heroism, and people talked about unity. But I think before that, people are still just trying to compute exactly what they saw and also all that they lost.
I think we have some clips of the people you spoke to. Let's see if we can go to them now.
Tell us what you saw.
We just seen the big explosion come out the door, and then we just seen the doors fly off, and then next thing I seen a little girl run out with blood on her, and then we just ran out then because the big announcement come on, and they ran out.
What did you see?
We didn't see anything, we just heard the explosion, and as soon as we heard it, everyone just started running, and it was a stampede. She got knocked over, I had to pick her up, and then we just had to get out. We were still in the arena at the time, just coming out. And then we saw people coming out to the station, covered in blood, people being carried out, people on the floor. And it was just...
What sort of injuries did you see?
Just a lot of blood. I was trying to get these two away, so I didn't hang around to see anything.
And Kieran is still with me. I mean, a lot of people have been talking about the kindness of strangers that has been shown in these hours, and it's still only, well, just a bit more than 12 hours since this happened.
There were people who gave up their homes to strangers, welcomed them in, somewhere to stay, somewhere to have a cup of tea. There were people who gave up their hotel rooms to strangers. There were hotel rooms who opened their lobbies so that people who had nowhere else to go could sleep there for the night. There were taxi drivers who turned off the meter and took people home, some of them incredible distances where they needed to go. And I think one of the most poignant things for me was a woman who described how in that moment of absolute fear, when she is running for her own life, she saw a girl who was frozen with fear and couldn't move, and they dragged her out of the building along with them. And I think that's the sort of sacrifice that people are talking about today.
Thanks, Kieran. Well, around 21,000 people were thought to have been at the concert when the explosion happened, many of them teenage girls and their parents. In the last few minutes, the first victim of the attack has been named as Georgina Callender, a student at Runshaw College in Leyland. They spoke of their enormous sadness. Many people have taken to social media, not just to help trace the missing, but to talk about what happened, as Porrick O'Brien reports.
This was a new sort of terrorism, directed at the YouTubers, the Instagrammers, the teenagers. It was a new sort of cowardice, targeting the Nickelodeon generation, targeting children. And they responded to the attack on the platforms they've grown up with, confusion and grief, with hashtags and emojis.
Till as old as time.
The atrocity took place in the foyer of an Ariana Grande concert. The American performer responded in shorthand. "Broken," she said, "from the bottom of my heart. I'm so sorry. I don't have words." Her fans are called Arianators. It's that generation, the ones who grew up with their pop idols online. They would have followed her through Nickelodeon child star to cultural phenomenon with 45 million followers on Twitter. An excitable young community that organises to go to a stadium gig together on Facebook, but mum and dad come too. Young people with more than just virtual lives, rooted in families and communities and cities like Manchester. Last night, James Corden's tribute to a town.
But when I think of Manchester, the place that I know, I think of the spirit of the people there. And I'm telling you, a more tight-knit group of people you will be hard-pressed to find. We'll all go to bed, holding our little ones even tighter this evening.
The clip went viral for a generation with a new, darker story to share.
Well, in the last few moments, the Queen has just given a statement expressing her deepest sympathy to all those affected, adding that the whole nation has been shocked by the deaths and the injury. Well, I'm joined now by Joe Flinders, who was also at the concert last night. And I'm sorry to ask you to go through this again, but can you tell me what happened?
Yeah, so from our perspective, as the concert came to an end and the encore finished, people were leaving the main arena room to get into the corridors to go towards the exits. And it was on the other side of the arena from where I was sat that there was an almighty boom that you felt shudder through you. At first we wondered whether it was going to be pyrotechnics or something, because there were balloons, as people have mentioned before in your programme. But nevertheless, there was a second of confusion, and then everybody darted towards the exits. Parents dragging children, screaming. It was really frantic.
Could you see any of the explosion or the aftermath of that, or were you just responding to the panic?
Everybody just responded to the panic, and it was an instinct to just run for the doors. The stewards opened all the doors, so we left and we started spilling out down the stairs into the streets. The thing that really hit home was obviously you could hear the bang from outside, so all these parents, the faces of the parents that weren't with the children that were picking them up, they were all running back towards the arena. As we tried to get away, we didn't stop. We walked straight across town to get away from the area, as I thought would be best to do. And in that time there were no less than 8 police cars, which we thought might have been for crowd management, still hoping for the best. But
they were there that quickly? I mean, how long had it taken you to get out?
So it was as we'd just left the main arena room into the corridors that's when the bang happened. But it just so happens that we were near an exit, so we got out quite quickly. We were probably some of the first out there. But I'd say within a minute we heard sirens. They were really, really quick to respond.
We've heard a lot of people talking about that panic and people describing it as a stampede and people being trampled. And I mean, that must have been very distressing.
It was more distressing because there were children, and it's even more shocking when parents lose their cool, because the image of parents is that they stay calm on the surface, but they were just so frantic. And as well, from the social media coverage that you've seen the videos of, there were people where the epicentre was. They actually ran back into the main arena room, and there were people trying to get down from the balconies, stampedes on the stairs. It was just awful to see. It's horrendous.
And at what point did you realise what had happened?
We still hope for the best. We knew nothing, and I don't take anything as read from social media. I was looking straight away on the Facebook feeds for Greater Manchester Police.
When you were outside?
Yeah, as soon as I was outside, I was checking my phone. Just I wanted to post straight away and call my parents just to say, look, this has happened before you panic, but we're okay. They didn't even know. I woke my mum up. She'd not heard anything of it. But it was when Greater Manchester Police released that statement saying that there'd been casualties that my stomach just fell to the floor. I felt sick. I still feel quite numb. I've not really had much sleep. But,
I think a lot of people are talking through shock.
I know.
At this point, aren't they? I mean,
I'm just a bystander. I can't imagine what the parents or the children are going through.
And where are you from? You're local, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm from South Manchester, Wythenshawe.
I don't know whether, I don't know how old you are, but I don't suppose you remember the last time Manchester came under attack.
I was in a pram.
Yeah, the Arndale Centre, which is just sort of over there.
Yeah.
In 1996. But you must know about it, and you must know how the city had a very defiant response to it.
Yeah, they did. It was that everybody came together, and I've seen a lot of that today on Facebook, which is really commendable. I went to work this morning because I was no use to anybody sat at home, and I felt, to deal with it, I needed to not be sat still, because that's just how I wanted to cope with it. But seeing how everybody was coming together on Facebook, and there's a blood donation bank set up on Market Street, Premier Inn and taxi companies are giving free lifts and free accommodation, and it's like a lost child centre, so it's really great, the response. It's an awful thing to have to do, but I feel like it's the best response we could have hoped for.
Well, thank you very much indeed for coming over and telling us your experience of what happened, Joe. Thanks very much indeed. And get some rest. So a reminder of our main news. A 23-year-old man has been arrested in South Manchester in connection with last night's bomb attack, which killed 22 people, including children, and left 59 others injured. The arrest was announced moments after Theresa May denounced the sickening cowardice of the lone suicide bomber who blew up his device at the Manchester Arena as young fans were leaving the pop concert. We'll be live again from Manchester tonight on Channel 4 and online at 7 o'clock with all the latest news and full reaction. Until then, have a good afternoon.